To achieve God status, you have to have smooth control of your wealth and emotions. Rakim, also called the God status, the man who redefined rhymes, achieved this status.
But these 5 artists managed to make him lose his cool. Before we dig into these classic rivalries, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any of our deep dives into hip-hop's biggest clashes and untold stories. The first on the list of artists Rakim hated the most is Big Daddy Kane. In the late 1980s, hip-hop was entering a golden age, and 2 names stood tall as lyrical giants: Rakim and Big Daddy Kane. Fans debated endlessly about who was the better MC, and that debate turned into one of the most legendary rivalries in rap history. Rakim, with his smooth, complex rhymes and effortless delivery, had already shifted the entire culture with classics like Eric B. is President and Paid in Full. Big Daddy Kane, on the other hand, came with sharp punchlines, rapid delivery, and undeniable charisma. Both men were hailed as game changers, and their very existence on the same timeline created a natural clash. The tension wasn't just fan-driven. Kane and Rakim exchanged subliminals on records, each one trying to prove he was the true king of New York lyricism. Kane would boast about being untouchable with wordplay, while Rakim reminded the world that he was the architect of intricate rhyme schemes. Though they never had a violent feud, their competitive fire made the air thick whenever their names were mentioned together. When Kane rapped on songs like Set It Off and delivered lines brimming with confidence about crushing competition, fans immediately speculated whether those bars were digs at Rakim. On the other side, Rakim's Follow the Leader showcased lines that felt like veiled responses, structured with such precision that critics argued he was redefining the very concept of a diss. What made this rivalry special was how evenly matched they seemed. Rakim was the master technician, Kane the flashy punchline assassin. To many, it felt like Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier, 2 greats in their prime, embodying different styles, each fighting for the throne. The tension for supremacy was fueled by both men wanting to be remembered as the greatest of their generation, and in chasing that crown, they pushed each other to new levels. While time has cooled the rivalry and history has honored them both, back in the late 80s and early 90s, the tension between Rakim and Kane felt like a cold war for lyrical immortality. The second on the list of artists Rakim hated the most is KRS-One. When hip-hop fans argued about the greatest MC alive in the late 80s and early 90s, the debate almost always narrowed down to 2 names, Rakim and KRS-One. Both men represented different philosophies of the culture, and that difference bred tension that often spilled into subliminals and competitive fire. KRS-One, the teacher, was raw, aggressive, and deeply rooted in battle rap tradition. His voice carried authority, his bars were aimed like weapons, and his presence demanded respect. Rakim, in contrast, was cool and calculated, lacing verses with intricate rhyme patterns and a spiritual calm that reshaped how MCs approached the mic. Together, they embodied 2 opposing forces, fire and ice. Though they never launched a full-scale diss war, their rivalry simmered through lyrical jabs and interviews. KRS-One would assert his dominance as the #1 MC, dismissing challengers while Rakim's rhymes often felt like subtle reminders that he was the innovator who elevated the craft. Fans read between the lines, fueling the sense that these two legends were circling each other in a battle for the throne. KRS's verses often carried the weight of a preacher, booming with authority. In tracks like My Philosophy and I'm Still Number One, he made bold claims of dominance, positioning himself as the culture's guardian and top MC. Fans and critics alike speculated that some of his braggadocious lines were aimed squarely at Rakim, a reminder that KRS didn't recognize anyone else as his equal. Rakim, by contrast, never shouted his greatness, but demonstrated it. On Microphone Fiend and Lyrics of Fury, his rhymes operated like code, layered with unexpected patterns that critics argued made him untouchable. What made the tension important was what it represented. KRS-One stood for the street battles, the cipher, and the idea of emceeing as direct confrontation. Rakim stood for evolution, precision, and artistry that transcended battles and aimed at perfection. Their hatred wasn't personal, but ideological, a struggle over what defined true greatness in hip-hop. The aftermath of their rivalry was one of mutual elevation. Neither man ever landed a clear diss record that ended the debate, but both thrived by being constantly compared to each other. For Rakim, KRS-One represented the ultimate challenger, a reminder that technical skill needed to stand alongside raw passion. For KRS, Rakim symbolized the laid-back genius who could claim the same throne without raising his voice. The third on the list of artists Rakim hated the most is LL Cool J. In the late 80s, LL Cool J was the superstar face of Def Jam, the brash young MC who had taken hip-hop into arenas and onto television screens. He had the charisma, the swagger, and the mainstream shine. Rakim, on the other hand, was the revolutionary, reshaping the art of lyricism from the underground up. Their paths were destined to cross, and when they did, sparks flew. LL often carried himself as the undisputed king of hip-hop, but Rakim's rise challenged that image. LL had the crossover success and charisma to win mainstream hearts, while Rakim had the underground respect that made him the MC's MC. Fans began comparing their catalogs, their styles, and their dominance. LL leaned into battle-ready braggadocio, often using his records to call out anyone who thought they could take his crown. Rakim, with his deliberate and cutting bars, delivered verses that reminded the world he wasn't chasing radio fame. He was setting a new standard for the craft itself. The rivalry became clear in subliminals traded on tracks. LL would boast about crushing any competition, while Rakim slid sharp lines into his verses that many interpreted as direct responses. In an era when rap was still solidifying its hierarchy, the idea of two giants fighting for the throne made the tension impossible to ignore. LL was notorious for declaring himself the best, dropping lines like, "No rapper can rap quite like I can," on tracks such as I'm Bad. While not aimed directly at Rakim, fans and critics read those boasts as part of a larger power struggle over who owned the crown. Rakim, without ever calling LL out by name, answered with verses that emphasized depth over flash, bars that reminded listeners he was innovating rhyme schemes in ways LL wasn't touching. On songs like Let the Rhythm Hit 'Em, He laid out lyrical blueprints that critics hailed as evidence of his superiority. What fueled the hatred wasn't a single personal incident, but the clash of legacies in real time. LL represented hip-hop's move toward mainstream stardom, while Rakim represented the art form's highest lyrical evolution. To LL, Rakim was a threat to his dominance. To Rakim, LL embodied a flashier, less pure version of what MCing was supposed to be. The aftermath showed how both men carved out different lanes. LL went on to become a multi-platform star with a career that stretched beyond music. Rakim, by contrast, stayed true to his craft, releasing work that critics studied line by line. Their rivalry never exploded into open warfare, but the contrast between them shaped the narrative of hip-hop in the late 80s and early 90s. For Rakim, LL Cool J was less an enemy and more a living symbol of what he refused to be. Flashy, commercial, and accessible at the expense of complexity. That quiet opposition made their tension one of the most defining rivalries of the Golden Age. The fourth on the list of artists Rakim hated the most is MC Serch. By the early 1990s, Rakim had already cemented himself as a lyrical god. His influence was undeniable, and his name carried weight in every conversation about the greatest MC alive. But not everyone was ready to bow down. MC Serch, the outspoken frontman of Third Bass, often positioned himself as a truth-teller in hip-hop, and in doing so, he crossed paths with Rakim. The friction came from Serch's tendency to poke at the giants. Known for being brash and unfiltered, he made comments in interviews that downplayed Rakim's influence, suggesting that the God MC was being elevated to untouchable status unfairly. In Serch's mind, the culture needed balance, and part of that balance was refusing to put any one man on too high a pedestal. Rakim didn't respond with a barrage of diss tracks, but the tension was palpable. In a culture built on respect, Serch's jabs were seen as reckless, even disrespectful. Rakim, whose persona thrived on control and mystique, treated Serch's words with icy disdain, letting his fans and his legacy do the talking. Rakim didn't take the bait in the way Cube or KRS-One might have. Instead, his silence and cool demeanor served as his answer. By refusing to engage fully, Rakim turned Serch into background noise. When he did acknowledge the criticism, it was with subtle, dismissive bars that reminded everyone he didn't need to shout to prove his dominance. The restraint itself became a weapon, reinforcing the aura that he was on a different plane altogether. What made this feud memorable wasn't the scale of the music exchange, but what it represented, a challenge to Rakim's crown from an unlikely place. Serch was never in Rakim's league lyrically, but his willingness to throw shots reminded the culture that even gods have to deal with hecklers. The hatred here was less explosive and more dismissive, a simmering contempt that revealed Rakim's refusal to let a loud critic diminish the quiet force of his reign. In the aftermath, Serch moved on to other ventures, including playing a behind-the-scenes role in the careers of artists like Nas. Rakim's legacy, meanwhile, grew even stronger, untouched by Serch's attempts to chip away at it. The clash served as a reminder that even icons attract critics, but not every critic deserves a battle. For Rakim, MC Serch was less an opponent and more a minor irritation, easily brushed aside while his legend continued to expand. The fifth on the list of artists Rakim hated the most is Eric B. This one cuts deeper than lyrical rivalries or competitive tension. Eric B wasn't just a collaborator, he was Rakim's partner, the other half of one of the most influential duos in hip-hop history. Together, Eric B and Rakim revolutionized rap with albums like Paid in Full and Follow the Leader, laying down the blueprint for generations to come. But behind the groundbreaking music was a relationship strained by money, control, and clashing visions. The fallout came in the early 1990s when the duo's partnership began to unravel. Rakim felt that Eric B was making business moves that boxed him in and limited his independence. Stories circulated of disputes over contracts, royalties, and who truly owned the brand they had built together. For Rakim, whose artistry was rooted in authenticity and control of his voice, feeling trapped by business entanglements was intolerable. When their deal with MCA Records ended in the early 1990s, Rakim was ready to pursue a solo career, but Eric B refused to sign a release contract. Eric B feared that once he signed, Rakim would walk away and leave him without a stake in the future. So he held on to the paperwork as leverage. What looked like a simple business decision quickly turned into a blockade that froze one of the greatest MCs of all time at the peak of his powers. For Rakim, the refusal felt like betrayal. Instead of creative freedom, he was caught in legal quicksand, unable to move forward cleanly with new deals. The result was years of silence after Don't Sweat the Technique in 1992. A drought that puzzled fans and critics who couldn't understand why the God MC had disappeared. The conflict didn't just end a legendary partnership. It stalled Rakim's momentum and left a scar on their legacy that reunion tours decades later couldn't fully erase. The bitterness showed in interviews in the absence of new collaborative projects. While there was no diss track war, the silence itself spoke volumes. Rakim moved on to pursue solo ventures, determined to carve out his career without the shadows of financial disputes or fractured loyalty. Fans were left disappointed, watching one of the greatest partnerships in rap history dissolve not because of lost talent, but because of mistrust. The media framed it as one of hip-hop's great tragedies, a duo that defined an era splitting not because of faded talent, but because of mistrust. Critics pointed out how unusual it was that diss tracks weren't exchanged, yet the bitterness was clear. The hatred here was personal. Unlike Kane, KRS-One, or LL, Eric B wasn't an external rival. He was a family-turned-foe. For Rakim, the split with Eric B represented the painful reality that even at the height of greatness, betrayal, and business conflicts could destroy what seemed unbreakable. Though time has softened the sting and occasional reconciliations have surfaced, the wound remains part of their legacy. The duo that once stood as untouchable innovators ended in animosity. And for Rakim, Eric B stands as a reminder that the hardest battles aren't always fought with rhymes. Sometimes they're fought in boardrooms and spring from broken trusts. Outro. From his Cold War with Big Daddy Kane to his tense rivalry with KRS-One, Rakim proved that even the calmest MC can be drawn into battles for supremacy. His quiet standoff with LL Cool J showed the clash between underground mastery and mainstream stardom. His dismissive contempt for MC Serch reminded the culture that every throne attracts challengers, even from unlikely places. And his bitter split with Eric B. revealed the deepest wound of all, the betrayal that comes not from outsiders, but from within your own circle. You just have to make sacrifices sometimes. Through it all, Rakim remained unshaken. He didn't chase headlines or throw wild threats. He let his craft, his precision, and his legacy do the talking. His rivalries were not about spectacle. They were about defending his artistry, his pride, and his place in a culture he helped define. Now it's your turn. Was his rivalry with Big Daddy Kane the most defining? Did his quiet tension with LL Cool J symbolize the biggest divide in hip-hop's golden age? Or was his fallout with Eric B. the most painful chapter of them all? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like if you respect Rakim's legacy, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the rivalries that shaped hip-hop history.